Hello. This video, we're going to be going through gold this week and general expectations for gold, what we can really potentially expect in terms of price. Obviously, last week was kind of an uneventful week for gold. A lot of the big potential fundamental news events didn't really affect the market too much in that, for example, GDP was what was expected. Powell didn't really say too much, but also didn't say anything crazy. And yeah, it was just a pretty uneventful week. But this week, I will tell you guys, should be significantly more eventful. And we're gonna go through those reasons why. So going to quickly go through the technicals, look at where we currently are in the market, then also discuss the key fundamental events for this particular week, and also look historically back at the last 2 months of how the fundamental events that's coming this week kind of affected the market in previous months, right? Because a lot of fundamental news events or data releases come out monthly, okay? If you're a beginner gold trader, you need to be fully aware of that, okay? So let's get started. So right now, I'm actually looking at the gold chart on the daily time frame. Now let me remove my drawings. So as you can see, or as everybody knows, last week was basically 100% sideways, right? We basically were consolidating between these two support and resistance areas of about 1790, 1800 and 17, you know, 60, 1770 around this area. We were just bouncing around sideways there. Initially on the hourly chart, we had a bit of a price wedge, so we potentially thought it could have broken up or broken down to in terms of like a real breakout, but it didn't really happen. We got that initial break up, but then it just failed as soon as we hit the resistance level. But from what I can really see on the day chart more than anything, right, is it does sort of look like we're building a bear flag here, right? So for those who aren't aware, it's something like this. This is a pattern which appears after a significant downtrend, which we obviously had, on the week of the interest rate news or the interest rate press conference, rather, not news, but press conference, and the hinting, okay, of potential interest rates increases sooner than expected, and also the discussion of tightening monetary policy by the Fed, right? Got crazy downwards price action. And really last week, in terms of the day chart, right, when you kind of zoom out and everything, it does look like we're forming a bit of a bear flag here. It's never 100% sure, but that does look like, or that's what it looks like on the charts, okay? And coincidentally, right, as we've kind of discussed I've discussed on previous videos on my channel, um, right now we're in the position where I fundamentally believe that we're bearish on gold, or rather we're bullish on the dollar, right? Because of what happened as a result of Powell and that press conference a couple of weeks back, right? And with the high inflation numbers. So coincidentally, this bear flag here kind of, also coincides or kind of mimics a similar price action or pattern that we saw on the DXY or the dollar chart, right, essentially, over the last week as well. Whereas in the dollar chart as well, we were also kind of going sideways, right? And as we know, there's kind of this direct correlation there. On the dollar chart in particular, on the DXY, we really struggled to get above this 200-day moving average here, right? As you can see, we kind of got stuck, but there's certainly a strong resistance at 91.5, right? So as soon as we saw this initial pullback here, right, we were met with pretty strong resistance at 91.5. And it looks like, again, we're also kind of forming some sort of, in this case, bull flag, okay? Because in the case of the DXY, we had the initial upwards or bullish momentum. I'm trying to keep everything as clear for beginners as possible because that's who I'm really trying to target. But anyway, so we really want to see if this week we can potentially get out or, see some real moves out of these flags, right? On either the DXY chart or on the gold chart here, right? I think that's really one of the key technical narratives that we want to really see for this week. Do I expect it initially over the first couple days? It really depends on if anything happens in particular, but I expect that we'll probably go sideways a bit more first because now leading to the second key part of this video, because we also have the very, very important fundamental news event happening this week, which is on Friday, and that's the non-farm payrolls or the NFP data release along with unemployment, the unemployment data release, okay, the unemployment rate. So this, as if you're a regular gold trader, you know happens one time per month, and it is one of the most important news events or data releases that happens on a monthly basis that can seriously affect the gold market, okay, especially the NFP data, okay. Um, so let's, for beginners, in case you really want to know what the NFP data is, okay? Non-farm payrolls measures the change in the number of people employed during the previous month, excluding the farming industry. Job creation is the foremost indicator of consumer spending, which accounts for the majority of economic activity, okay? So there you have it, right? The reason why this is so important, right, especially given the current macroeconomic situation, right, is because this is one of the strongest indicators as to whether the U.S. economy is actually recovering at a strong rate, okay? And not in kind of like a fake rate because the government has essentially been printing so much money and basically just forcing the economy to recover, right? As a result of the pandemic. So this is one of the leading indicators, and it's why this particular data release moves the market so much for the dollar, okay? And obviously because there's the correlation between dollar and gold, it can either be very bullish or bearish for the gold market as well, okay? Um, if you guys have been following gold over the last 2 months, what you would know in particular is that the previous two NFPs, right, actually were below the forecast, okay? Below the forecast. And in particular in May, we were so below the forecast, it was almost ridiculous and it caused crazy volatility. Nobody expected it to miss the forecast by so much, right? The forecast was 978,000, okay? And we actually only had an actual number of 266,000. Okay, that's a crazy mess, and it led to crazy volatility in the market, and it actually sparked quite a strong gold bull run. And even in May, when we missed by not that much, but we missed the forecast. Again, you could see initial short-term volatility in terms of in terms of bullish price action, and then also over the coming days. Let's go back to the charts. Okay, so if we look, no, let me first put my drawings back. Oops. Go back, go back, go back, go back, go back, go back, go back. I want to put, there we go. I want my support and resistances. But let's go to a lower time frame. So let's go to the hour chart. And the last data release for NFP was actually on June 4th, where we didn't have that crazy miss. Okay, we didn't have the crazy miss, but we were under the initial, the actual forecast. Okay, and as you can see, this was the hourly candle that we saw, right, when the NFP data came out. We actually had initially reached this 1910, almost 1920 level in gold, and we actually were experiencing pretty strong bearish price action during that time. But as a result of the NFP data, we actually saw this crazy initial couple hours, right, of bullish price action before we kind of were sticking around 1900 again, right? But the NFP data really sparked that initial comeback because we kind of missed the number. So it was bearish for the dollar and bullish for gold. If we go back to May 7th, which was the really crazy miss, May 7th, here we are, right? This was the actual candle that we saw. So although on May 7th we missed by quite a lot, we didn't see as strong volatility short term as in June. But as you can clearly see, it really did spark quite a strong, or was a pretty strong indicator for what was to come, which was a pretty strong bullish uptrend over the coming days and even weeks. okay? That was such a bad miss that it really showed that the US economy was not recovering nearly as well as so many analysts, so many politicians were claiming at that particular time back in May. Okay, so you have to remember, you have to take all of this data and put it into context in terms of politics and the macroeconomic stories and narratives of that time. Now, let's go back to where we are now for this week, right? So what is actually the story this time, right? Well, or the narrative? Well, Powell, in his press conference last week and the previous week, has been really claiming or has been really going on about how strong the economy is recovering and everything is on track, blah, 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 blah. The U.S. economy is recovering better than expected, okay, despite poor jobs data, right? Despite poor jobs data in the last couple of months. So now we really want to see for this month, are we going to be above the forecast this time? So are we really going to be improving on the job situation, or is it still going to miss? And is it kind of almost going to put like doubt on what Powell has been claiming in terms of the economic recovery for the US? That's what we really want to see. And again, the last two times we have missed. It has not been as positive as the forecasters expected. For this particular time, the forecast is 675,000. Okay, so 675,000, that's the number of employed people, right? From the previous time, all right, from last month. We want to see, are we going to be above or below this forecast? If we're going to be above, that's going to add a lot of credence, okay, or a lot of impetus on this narrative that we are bullish on the dollar in terms of trading gold, okay? And it should lead to some pretty strong bearish price action for gold, okay? On the other hand, if we miss crazy like we did back here, right, back in May, that could really swing things and make the whole market even more mixed, okay, leading to actual buy pressure, upside buy pressure for gold, right, or bullish demand for gold, okay? I do think that just given where we are also with inflation, with the interest rate news that came out a couple weeks back and all that, if we miss even pretty badly, I still think that the market is so mixed that it won't lead to nearly as strong bullish price action as it would lead to bearish price action if we actually hit above the forecast, or, we're on the money with the forecast. Okay. This is just my personal take, but it's never really 100% sure. Okay. But that's just kind of how I would interpret any potential, positive or negative data release when it comes to NFPs for this week. Okay. At the same time, that's definitely the most important, but at the same time, released at the exact same time, okay, is not here, is the unemployment data as well, the unemployment rate, which, if you have been following it all, is still extremely high, right? Like 5.8% for the US is extremely high, period. Okay. We really want to see it, right? As you can see in the forecast, are we actually slowly decreasing the unemployment rate? The unemployment rate is still a big issue for the government, right? It's still a big issue for the Fed, okay? If we're really recovering as strongly as the Fed is claiming, we should, see a slow but steady decline with this unemployment rate. If inflation is really transitory, if everything that's happening in the economy is kind of transitory as well in nature, we should see a decline in this unemployment rate. So again, if we're on the money, or we're slightly below, it should add credence to the fact that yes, we want to be bullish on the dollar and bearish on gold, and vice versa, okay? So this is also going to have an impact, probably not as strong as the NFP data, but certainly will have an impact, okay? And it's really important that 7:30, if you have positions open, all right, if you have positions open at 7:30 my time on Friday, so that would be, I guess, 7:30 US, right, in the morning. You have your stop losses extremely tight, okay, because it's really hard to say which way the data is going to go, okay? It doesn't matter what any analyst on any of your whatever media source says. It's very, very difficult to predict. So have tight stop losses, okay, set. And if you're trying to actually trade the news, don't just try and trade it straight away, but wait for the news to come in, for the market to react, and then kind of analyze the news first, okay, and then determine if you want to, or like basically determine your bias based off that news, okay? Don't just jump in as soon as you see the volatility candle, because I've seen people get wiped out like that, right? All of a sudden it looks like price is going one way, and before you know it, boom, huge dump, right? So don't try and trade that short-term volatility. I would not recommend that if you're a beginner trader on gold. It's one of the easiest ways to get your account wiped out, especially off NFP data. I've seen it happen with my own eyes, okay? So don't do it. Very, very risky. Okay. So anyways, that's the technical and fundamental kind of things that we want to watch out for this week, in my opinion. Okay. Guys, make sure that we're paying attention to the DXY. We're paying attention, of course, to the yields, although yields have also been kind of going sideways, not really been increasing as I was kind of expecting. But we have the really big data coming out this week. I do expect, right, that initially over the first few days of the week, we could continue to see some sideways price action. But then especially as we start approaching Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, right, we could potentially see the market start moving based off, basically pre-news kind of predictions or estimates, okay? So sometimes you'll see that on Thursday, for example, on Thursday, you'll see that the market's starting to move one way because they're kind of expecting news to either be bullish or bearish, right? So be aware of that, okay? Be aware of that. And be aware that the market is certainly going to be paying attention to the NFP news on Friday, okay? All right, guys. That's it for this video on kind of the weekly outlook for gold. If you have any questions, definitely leave a comment. If you like the content, please give a thumbs up. I'm trying not to sound like such a sour asshole all the time, but that's just kind of my nature. Anyway, take care, guys.